we're transsexual, which means that there is a developmental issue that happened during the fetal development process where the brain gets wired differently than the body gets developed. So you have an incongruity there. One of the things we talked about, I think it was last week with this slide, was the difference between your sex, your gender identity, your gender expression, and your sexual orientation. And I think probably a good way to talk about cross-dressing versus being transsexual within the transgender community is to talk about your gender identity versus your gender expression. If your gender identity is female and your gender expression is male or masculine, then you're cross-dressing. If your sex is female and your gender identity is male, then you're probably transsexual.
And one of the points that the caller made was about people in the closet.
That is a huge problem.
And we can understand why people fear, because coming out is really hard.
It's scary.
But one of the problems is that when we're trying to organize, it's hard to get numbers. We don't know how many people who are really transgender, transsexual, cross-dressing, because we're a very closeted community.
Everybody's in hiding. That's right.
And so when we talk to the legislators and they say, well, how big is the community? We have to say, we don't know.
Well, what we do know is that it's much bigger than everybody thinks.
Well, even when we had the folks from True Colors on, Kamora Harrington was talking about statistics of kids leaving school because of being GLBT trans issues. And as she was saying, a kid leaves school because he was bullied. Well, he was bullied because he's gender non-conforming, but they don't record him as leaving school because he's gender non-conforming. They record him as leaving school because he was bullied. So even when they do try and take statistics, they're not necessarily accurate.
And even if you're in the closet, too, you still can face discrimination. Down in South, this person was cross-dressing on their own, but their employer found out, Winn-Dixie, and they fired him because he was cross-dressing at home. And they're afraid that...
on his own time.
On his own time. And they're afraid that somehow somebody would see him and get back to the company and say, oh...
It would be a blight on the company image.
And so they fired him.
Imagine that. Wow.
So, we have to, try to reach out to people and try to get this bill to pass because it will protect everybody.
Having the legal protection is certainly a great sense of safety. It doesn't mean you're going to be safe, but at least you have that knowledge that under the law you're an okay person. But a lot of it too, I think, is just exposure. The more people, the more of us that don't hide, the more of us that are positive images for the community. I work with about 100 people in my office, and I heard from 3 or 4 of them that they've known trans folks before. But I potentially, opened up the subject for 95 people. That will be able to say that next time they meet someone.
That's right.
And we're activists by just being ourselves, just going out and doing things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hopefully, I would like to think that what we do, just being here, having a television show, and having our face out there
is helping
somebody. It's my friend, again, this is my friend in Montreal who is an amusing person, but she said to me, she said that this were her words. She said she was grateful for all those that went before us because they made the targets on our backs just a little bit smaller. And hopefully we can do that for the next generation. And
it's certainly for anybody that is struggling, for anybody that is in the closet, anybody that is finding it difficult because there's no support at home, or their friends don't seem supportive, or their coworkers don't, and obviously you're not asking them, but you're setting up conversational situations where you might discern their opinion on a topic. I would strongly suggest looking around on the internet. There are a lot of groups like ours, some not quite like ours, that are out there to provide connections, to provide support. There's a lot of like internet chat groups and stuff where you can connect with other people and at least share some of what you're dealing with, because it's very, very important to connect with other people in the transgender community, regardless of your status in the community, just so you know you're not alone. There are supportive people out there. You may run into folks who aren't, but you have to know that just like finding your great love, you're gonna have to go through several people probably to find those really supportive folks that care about you and not care about what you look like.
Because when I was growing up, I thought I was all alone.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the 80s and 90s I started realizing there were other people that identified like I did.
I think that's common to most of us. We all had sort of the similar experience.
And hopefully a changing story.
And I grew up thinking that I was some kind of a freak and just hiding. And guess what?
The first time I realized I wasn't alone, I was washing the car and Lola came on the radio. It says boys be girls and girls be boys. I said, what?
Wait a minute, someone's talked about this before?
Absolutely, yes. It's interesting. I think I was talking to Stacy the other day about that, because I was on my way over to her house and Lola was on. And I love the Kinks. But I was saying that to her. I said, it's amazing how much music has been written about us.
Yes.
It's like
Walk on the Wild Side. And
some really good music too. Right. Absolutely.
And some stuff you may consider parody.
But
the funny thing was, I had read about transsexual and more derogatory terms for the gender non-conforming community throughout high school and college, but it wasn't until I actually started, stepped out, not dressed myself, but and started meeting. The first person I met was a cross-dresser here in southern Connecticut, who I'm not going to say much more about because he's stuck. But and this was somebody that my therapist had hooked me up with. Said, I think you ought to talk to this person, just so you not in so many words, but just so you realize you're not alone.
That is so important, and you don't see that until you actually do it.
Until you actually do it,
you go, oh my God!
It's the scariest cliff you'll ever jump off of until you actually do, and you realize it's just an illusion.
There is a giant leap of faith there. There really is.
That third test in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, he steps off the cliff.
Good evening, nlcTrans. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
That sounded like a click.
They hung up.
Okay.
Last Friday night I was called to a meeting, and it was a parent that their son just came out as their daughter, and they were looking for support. It's not just us that need support. It's also
absolutely.
the whole families. And we were able to arrange a meeting with him and two other parents who were able to sit down and talk to him about going through this.
Yeah, we've talked in the past about how I'm not the only one that transitions.
Right.
My family and my friends go through a transition with me, because if you can be discriminated against because you are trans, then certainly you can be discriminated against because you did something wrong raising your kid is trans. Or how can you be friends with that person? She's such a weirdo. And I apologized to all my friends when I came out to them that I was putting them through this, and almost to a T, each one of them berated me for even thinking it, and I love them for it.